Hello, everybody. You know what today is, don't you? That's right. Wake Up Wednesday. So grab your cup of coffee. Yeah, I know. Again, it's the day before Coffee Shop Thursday, but hey, it's Wake Up Wednesday. Get that caffeine going in your system. Um, you know, we have an interesting passage to talk about this morning, and that's from 1 Corinthians 15, 12 through 20. The Apostle Paul, in this letter to the Corinthians, talks a lot about ethical matters and practical matters, things that are going wrong in this Corinthian church, and he's trying to set them straight. He has to answer charges against his authority as an apostle, and he gets into talking about divisions that are within the church that are splitting this church. There's issues of sexual immorality that he deals with, lawsuits. They're suing each other. What's that all about? Christians suing one another. Then there's questions about marriage, and then just sitting down to eat dinner. Questions about that. Why? Because food has been sacrificed to idols. Um, the biggie, abuses, abuses that are taking place surrounding the Lord's Supper. We have that going on. And then the real big one that we've been dealing with more recently, spiritual gifts. But now we get to this chapter 15, which we're just about done with this first letter, and Paul gets very theological, and he kind of pulls it all together to say what's the most important thing of all. Evidently, he's heard that there are many in the church who doubt that the resurrection of Jesus is real, that anyone's going to be resurrected for that matter. And it's not too far-fetched to understand what's going on here. This is the Corinthian church, very Greek culture. And if you remember some of your stuff way back in high school, when you talked about the Greek culture, there was a very sharp dualism that they believed in, dualism between body and spirit. In other words, this body of ours is evil, evil in the flesh, so to speak. And really what we want to do is be able to move into a higher plane of spirituality where we eventually will shed this evilness and be pure spirit and be one with God. There's a lot of that kind of thought going on all over the world, even within Christianity. But the Apostle Paul says, we can't go there, folks. That's not what it's about. It's about the resurrection. The word that he used is necros, and that means corpse. This body of ours is going to be resurrected. Let's read just a part of what he has to say. Now, if Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say there's no resurrection of the dead? If there's no resurrection of the dead, then Christ has not been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our proclamation has been in vain, and your faith has been in vain. He gets right to the point. This is all about our life in Christ, a Christ who was raised from the dead. For the Apostle Paul, we see it all through his letters. It's so important to believe in the resurrection. The resurrection was something that there was a good chunk of Judaism that did believe in it, but there was also a big chunk that Jesus had to deal with that didn't, and that would include the Sadducees. They didn't believe there was any such thing. When you're dead, you're dead. Have a nice nap, forever. No, because the Apostle Paul saw death and sin as integrally. Did I say that right today? See, I probably need another cup of coffee. No, they're very closely associated. Because of sin comes death. But God, showing his power over sin, shows his power by raising Jesus from death. And he will raise you and me from death. But you see, the Apostle Paul goes even further than that in a lot of his writings, where he says, yeah, that's a future hope for sure, but it becomes a present reality in our lives right now. As we are resurrected in Christ, we died in those waters of baptism. We really have died in the waters of baptism, and we are raised to new life right now. It makes a difference in our lives right now. That is why all the things that he talked about previously in the letter to the Corinthians are valid and necessary for us to live out in our lives right now. Eating food to idols, sexual immorality, taking care of things at the Lord's table. There's an awful lot that goes on, and it's a lot of it's right here in this first letter to the Corinthians, but we'll see it all through the writings of the Apostle Paul. But make no doubt about it, resurrection, Easter, we are Easter people, and we need to live like Easter people and keep our faith and hope and trust in a God who will raise you and me from the grave. Well, it's getting pretty bright out. I have a lot I got to get done today, so drink up that last little sip of coffee. Literally, that was my last sip. Now, time to get going in this bright, beautiful, wonderful world that God has set before us. Blessings be with you this day.